Greetings and shalom from sight. We're here to gather in humility and truth once again. I'm here with my wife Christina, and we are going to dive into a very interesting topic. What is it? Well, if you saw our little post about what's happening, we're going to be talking about Moses' staff, the staff that changed everything. We're going to be talking about all the connections and how it pertains to us, obviously, today. But when I posted that post, I gave you a little spoiler about what's the rod represent in the New Testament, I guess you could say, in the New Testament. I said shepherd staff, who has suffered more than our conquering king. Well, our Hebrew Messiah can be portrayed in the fact of the staff of Moses. It's very interesting. And a lot of other things can be a myth, I know, can be debunked in these sort of things. But the Torah contains some awesome concepts that are buried in the most unlikely of places in Torah. And I believe those who are truly seeking his hidden diamonds, or his hidden moral, what is those things the pigs find in the
pearls,
in the woods?
Truffles.
The truffles, the hidden truffles, so to speak, of the Torah. And in this study, we're going to examine said staff, or rod, of Moses in an attempt to expose some hidden diamonds, hidden gems, hidden truffles. In the process, we'll also find that there are very intriguing origins to certain myths. How there truly is nothing new under the sun. And some parables and other witnesses of said Torah that will change everything. So, dear Father, Yahuwah, we come to you in the name of Yahushua to give you thanks for being the greatest king ever lived. You suffered for us and you conquered for us. And we thank you for that. And we just want to be ready for your word as we dive into what it is that you want to teach us about your rod and how it pertains to our lives every single day. In the name of Yahuwah, we pray. Amen. So, the Midrash has parables that comments on the Torah. And the parables of the Midrash are often changed by the world into their own little myths that we learn as children. It's very understanding, and when I've studied them more and more as I study the Midrash itself, it is very obvious that, like I said, there is nothing new under the sun. But let's start out by, like we always do, a little history lesson, if you will, of the staff. Who used it first? What was it? I mean, who done this? Why? Well, the Hebrew Mateh is found in Genesis 38:18, and he said, "What pledge shall I give thee?" And she said, "Thy signet, and thy bracelets, and thy staff that is in thine hand." And he gave it to her, and came unto her, and she conceived by him. In the first use of staff, we see the conception of the kingly and messianic line. Basically, Tamar has engineered this encounter to produce the king of Israel and the Messiah. The staff is used to guarantee Yaakov's acknowledgement of his offspring. It is used to show the greatness of Yaakov, who would stand up and admit the sordid details despite the cost. The amazing encounter will also lay the foundation for the Tikkun. And what is the Tikkun? In case we don't know, I have that pulled up. As just an easy definition, the Tikkun is basically a book of Torah, and it is what is it? Well, it's basically the prayers that are said, and from the basically the prophets and the rabbi literature that's observant by the Yahudim, basically during the night of Shavuot and Hashanah. So this amazing encounter will also lay the foundation for this tikkun, the correction by Ruth and Boaz, as we have discussed in previous studies. I mean, we haven't did an on-detail study on Ruth. Obviously, that should be, or obviously that's a future thing. But thus we will see that the staff is intimately related to the kingship and to the exercise of the authority of a king. When you look at extra witnesses, your Jewish Zohar shows the staff as a symbol of authority by describing it as a spear. It says, and he smote an Egyptian, a man of good appearance, etc. This meaning of this verse is that every time Israel sins, Yahuwah leaves them and withholds from them all the blessings and all the lights which illuminated them. He smote an Egyptian. This signifies the light of Israel's great luminary, to wit, Moses, who is called an Egyptian, as it is written, and then said, an Egyptian delivered us. Exodus chapter 2, verse 19. For there he was born, there he was brought up, and there he was vouchsafed the higher light. A man of good appearance also signifies Moses, of whom it is written, Aumar-e, or by clear appearance, and not in dark speeches. This is Numbers. So too Manish, as he is called, a man of Yahuwah in Deuteronomy, the husband, as it were, of divine glory, leading it whereso he would upon the earth, a privilege no other man had ever enjoyed. It says from their Zohar that an Egyptian had a spear in his hand, to wit the divine rod that was delivered into his hand, as we read, with the rod of Yahuwah in my hand. And that's a reference to Exodus, which is the same rod that was created in the twilight of the eve of the Shabbat, and on which there was engraven the divine name in sacred letters. With the same rod, Moses sinned by smiting the rock. As we read, he smote the rock with his rod twice. The Kodesh one, blessed be he, said to him, I have not given the rod for that purpose. By thy life from henceforth it will not be in thy hands any more. Immediately he went down to him with a rod. He judged him rigidly, and he plucked the spear out of the Egyptian's hand. For from that moment he lost it and never more regained it, and slew him with his spear, i.e., through the sin of smiting the rock with that rod, he died without entering the promised land, and thereby that illumination was withheld from Israel. So it's important to look at all the information. Strong's defines the staff as basically a branch, as extending a fig, a tribe, also a rod, whether for chastising, ruling, throwing, or walking. The KJV translate the Hebrew word as staff to rod or tribe. In fact, this word is more often translated as tribe than any other way. So our first task is to try to understand how a staff is related to a tribe. This at first it's like, what is that? What is that? It doesn't really make sense. Further, this staff comes from a Hebrew word which means branch. In order to bring this conception home in a very sharp manner, it is instructive to note that there is a second Hebrew word that means branch. This is true. 07626. Shebet, from an unused root, probably meaning to branch off. So it's very understanding that a rod, staff, branch, offshoot, club, shaft, clan. Shevet is used in the following Torah. Genesis 49:10. The word shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and until him shall the gathering of the people be. Or, instead of the word, the scepter. The scepter. What was one of our translations? Oh, just a scepter. That's just another translation of rod, staff, branch. So, how could this really read? The branch shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, until him shall the gathering of the people be. And then Genesis 49:16. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel, or rods of Israel, or scepter of Israel. Genesis 49:28. All of these are the 12 tribes, or the 12 rods, or the 12 branches of Israel, and this is that their father spoke unto them and blessed them, and everyone according to his blessing he blessed them. So here again we see tribe and a staff and a branch are all related. Furthermore, you have Jewish scholars that teach that if we have two meanings for the same word, then the two meanings are really just one meaning with two perspectives or manifestations. So, according to most of the classic Jewish commentaries, the Shevet is to be defined as a ruling rod, whereas the Matai is a supporting staff. A staff is a branch which bends away from a tree, which has been smoothed and sized by who? By the owner. A tribe is the descendants of a particular person. So Yaakov would be like a main branch of a tree, with his 12 sons being a staff, sized branch which bends away from their father. In the course of their lives, Yahuwah has given his Torah to these sons in order that they might be smooth and properly sized as well. But both a tribe and the staff are tools used by the hand of Yahuwah to accomplish his purposes. So from the definition given to us by Strong's, we can see that there are several uses for the staff and therefore for tribes. From this understanding so far, we can see that there's a very deep concept behind a seemingly insignificant staff. Is this staff more important than what we really thought? Well, was Abraham not the shepherd of Israel? Was Isaac not the shepherd of Israel? Was Yaakov not the shepherd of Israel? Was Yahusef not the shepherd of Israel? These are all patriarchs of Israel. They are the men with whom Yahuwah reinstated his very covenant. Abraham lived 175 years. Isaac lived 180 years. Yaakov lived 147. Yahusef lived 110. Each of these men were considered a prince, a ruler. Abraham was called a prince by the inhabitants of the land. For example, the sons of Shet replied to Abraham, saying this in Genesis 23:6, "Hear us, my master. You are a prince of Yahuwah in our midst." It follows that upon the death of Abraham, Isaac would be considered a prince, would he not?
Mm-hmm.
And upon his death, would not Isaac, would not Yaakov be considered the prince? And upon the death of Yaakov, would not Yahusef be considered the prince? Now, both shepherd and prince rule. Both are leaders. The rod that a shepherd and a prince carry is a point of identity. When Abraham died, Isaac officially carried his father's rod of leadership. When Isaac died, Yaakov officially carried his grandfather's and father's rod of leadership. When Yaakov died, Yahusef officially carried his great-grandfather's and father's rod of leadership. This is why the Torah states, a new king came into power of Mitzrayim who did not know Yahusef. Who did not know Yahusef. This is Exodus 1:8. It says, a new king came into the power of Mitzrayim, or Egypt, who did not know Yahusef, did not know Joseph. How did they not know him if he's the prince? Oh, I see. Now the whole story makes even more sense of why he had to get thrown away. In other words, he did not know Abraham, Isaac, Yaakov, or Yahusef. He did not recognize their rod of leadership, and after Yahusef's death, it was as if the rod had just disappeared. From Yahusef to Moses, we do not read a leader in Kal Israel. That was a period of 59 years. Yahusef's older brothers, Levi, lived 23 years after Yahusef's death, and after Levi's death, 36 more years passed before the birth of Israel's next leader, Moshe.
Yeah. I really like, you know, the whole definition of H4294 from H5186, where it says a branch, which means as extending, figuratively, like you said, the tribe. All right, that's one part. The rod, you know, that's used for chastising as well and correction, right? So, and also like ruling, because he's the King of Kings, you know, a scepter, and throwing a lance, like, you know, when the two horses and they go together in the thing, you know what I mean, and throwing the lance, you know,
Yeah.
and all these things, like he was like you just mentioned,
I'm
right
with
there. And then walking, you know, a walking stick, a staff, you know, figuratively, you know, it's support of life, you know, because it's supporting you as you're doing your life's work, you know, walking through, you know, the pastures with the sheep or whatever it is, you know. For example, also like bread of life, maybe, you know, all of these things make sense when we look at all of the references, as, you know, how it means both, all three, rod, staff, tribe, everything, you know, how it represents, you know, Mashiach and all these things, that Yahuwah always is telling us what his promise is, and he's never trying to confuse us, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so when we dig deep and really get into the study, we see how much we can really learn.
Right. And you never stop.
Right.
Like there'll be a lot that I leave out, not on purpose.
Right. Yeah.
It's just so much.
It's a beautiful thing.
Right.
'Cause it all comes together. It all connects. So that's how you know that it's truth, because it just is like, oh wow, it makes everything make so much sense. Like you read a verse and it's like, wow, I've read that verse over and over, but I've never really read it that way and understood that way. So it's all in how you receive it, right? So, and then that comes with your spiritual maturity and your learning and your growth, and you're actually wanting to learn, because Yahuwah wants to communicate with us. And so we're here to be like, you know, coming alongside you and learning together with you and just letting you know what we know, just so that we can all be on the same page, right? You know, which is his page, you know? And we're all on different pages. That's okay, you know? That's good.
No.
But everybody has a part to play. Everybody has something to say. Everybody has, you know, their contributions, and everybody needs to be open-minded. Everybody needs to, you know, like I've said many times, have a garage sale of your mind and everything that you've learned up until this point, because things are not how they used to be. And that's just the bottom line.
So you can become free.
Yeah.
And know what freedom actually is, really.
Yeah.
And not a fake definition or a false definition of what freedom is.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Hint, it's not the Braveheart movie.
Right. Right. So, Moses' staff, it first appears to us in Torah when Moses encounters the burning bush. We look at Exodus chapter 3 verse 16. It says, "Go and gather the elders of Israel together, and say unto them, Yahuwah, Elohim of your fathers, the Yahuwah of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, appearing unto me, saying, I have surely visited you, and have seen that which is done to you in Egypt. And I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt unto the land of Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, unto a land flowing with milk and honey. And they shall hearken to thy voice, and they shall and thou shalt come, thou and the elders of Israel unto the king of Egypt, and ye shall say unto him, Yahuwah Elohim of the Hebrews have met with us, and now let us go, we beseech thee, 3 days journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to Yahuwah our Elohim. And I am sure that the king of Egypt will not let you go, no, not by a mighty hand, and I will stretch out my hand and smite Egypt with all my wonders which I will do in the midst thereof. And after that he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, and it shall come to pass that when ye go, you shall not go empty, but every woman shall borrow of her neighbor, and of her that sojourn in her house, jewels of silver and jewels of gold, and raiment, and ye shall put them upon your sons and upon your daughters, and ye shall spoil the Egyptians. And Moses answered and said, But behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice, for they will say, Yahuwah have not appeared unto thee. And Yahuwah said unto him, What is that in thy hand? And he said, A rod. And he said, Cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moses fled from before it. And Yahuwah said unto Moses, Put forth thine hand, and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand, and caught it. And it became a rod in his hand, that they may believe that Yahuwah, Elohim of their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Yaakov, have appeared unto thee.
Amen.
So the Midrash comments on the reason for delivering the staff to Moses. After persuading a reluctant Moses to accept his mission, and that's how we are all in our lives. We are reluctant to accept our commitment to the Great Commission. But Yahuwah delivers the staff and informs Moses that it will be the apparatus for performing the miracles. The Midrash comments that Yahuwah informed Moses, Even if you are unwilling to fulfill my mission, this staff, inanimate as it is capable of executing my will. This sobering message, this should be an eye-opening for you, and should ideally assure Moses and his continued commitment despite his doubts and misunderstandings. It also depersonalizes Moses, which may contribute to his conviction. If the staff is fully capable of miracles, there is little reason to impute these powers to Moses. In this light, referencing the staff on the night of Pesach is a very important strategy. Moses' name is absent from the Seder, and because for the reason is that this is the night of Yahuwah, as the well-known Dirasha confirms. I alone, without my intermediary agent, just as the association of the angelic agents is suppressed, so is Moses' mortal agency. To emphasize the absence of human intercession, the staff and its message is mentioned. See, this is so you don't get tricked up. There is no intercessor needed between you and Yahuwah. You can talk to him directly. You don't need a Moses. This is what he wanted to explain to Moses. You're not needed. He makes a rod do whatever. He makes just an inanimate object do what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's great.
Yeah, a third imagery of the Matai is provided by the continuation of the same midrash that we referenced. Having delivered the staff to Moses, Yahuwah informs him of a post-Egyptian role for the staff and producing heavenly manna, water, clouds of glory, and various other gifts. A staff which has been so clearly aligned with plagues and human suffering would also be a pivotal point in ensuring the survival of humankind. It is an icon of the Oot, or the signs. Many different forms of miracles, and not merely of plagues. Moses must be aware of these potentials, even as he wreaks havoc upon Egypt through the curses and plagues. After the Exodus, religion may have been miscast by some as centered around death and suffering. In announcing himself to the ancient world, Yahuwah destroyed the cradle of civilization and riddled them with months of misery. It is crucial that religion be viewed as a contribution to the human condition, and that this divine staff be responsible for well-being and human benefit as well. This broader role was already announced prior to the Exodus, well before any of those benefits will be necessary, to ensure a different view of the staff. But it is the staff of life and not of death. Well, it is very interesting that Moses answered and said, "But behold, they will not believe, nor hearken to me. For they will say, Yahuwah has not appeared to you." And Yahuwah appeared to him and said, "What is that in your hand?" And he said, "The rod." He said, "Cast it on the ground." And he cast it on the ground and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from before it. And he said, "Cast it on the ground." And he cast it on the ground. And Yahuwah said to Moses, "Stretch forth your hand and seize it by the tail." And he stretched forth his hand and grasped it, and became the rod in his hand. In order that you may believe that Yahuwah, Elohim of their fathers, the Yahuwah of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, the Elohim of Jacob, has revealed himself to you. We'll be taking a length about talking about this, but it's important to note that the rod was simply a tool in Moses' hand. So, when you look at Exodus 4:20, it says, "So Moses took his wife and his sons, mounted them upon the donkey, and he returned to the land of Egypt. And Moses took the staff of Yahuwah in his hand." If you go on and read it, you can see it goes on to emphasize that it was Moses' hand that would perform the miracle. "And Moses took his wife and his sons and made them ride on the ass, and returned to the land of Mitzrayim. And Moses took the rod which he had brought out away from the chamber of his father-in-law, and it was from the sapphire throne of glory. It weighed 40 sin, and upon it was engraved to set forth the great and glorious name by which the sign should be wrought before Yahuwah by his hand." Engraving always meant that what is engraved is of the essence of the object, not applied onto the object as it is written, but expressed in the very medium of the object itself. The following verses in Exodus 4:25 show that this miracle is in his hand, not in the staff. Yahuwah said to Moses, "When you go to the return to Egypt, see all the sons that I've placed in your hand, and before the Pharaoh. But I will strengthen his heart, and he will not send out the people." Rasha added that his voice, his voice to the above verse, that I have placed in your hand. He did not say this is a reference to the 3 signs, for he had not commanded that Moses do them before Pharaoh, but before Israel, in order that they would believe him, and we do not find that he performed them before him. Who's him? The Pharaoh. But regarding signs that I destined to put into your hand in Egypt, such as when Pharaoh speaks to you, i.e. asking for you to perform some sort of miracle or sign, do not wonder that it is written that I have placed, which is implying a past tense, because this is what it means. When you speak to him, I will have already placed them into your hand.
That's so amazing. And it's so funny that you were talking about that, because like I just found something that is just that goes right along with exactly what you're talking about the authority of the right hand of Yahuwah and what that actually means. Okay, so we're going to go to Exodus 4:5. And it says that they may believe that Yahuwah of the Elohim of their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob hath appeared unto thee, right? So when we see that they may believe, we go to the Hebrew, it says, Amen.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Yes. And you will not believe the definition here and where we're led to. It says, a primitive root properly to build up or support, to foster as a parent or nurse.
No bet.
Like milk and honey, like what is his promise, right?
Right.
Figuratively, to render or be firm or faithful, to trust or believe, to be permanent or quiet, morally, to be true or certain. To go into the right hand, hence assurance, believe, bring up, establish, fail. You learn from your failures. Be faithful, of long continuance, steadfast, sure, surely trustworthy, verified. Again, nurse, like nursing mother and a loving father. To put trust and turn to the right hand. And then we go again. It's seen once more, total 108 times, but what we are going to Isaiah chapter 30, verse 21. And where it says, and thy ears shall hear a word behind thee saying, this is the way, walk ye in it. When you turn to the right hand, and when you turn to the left, you shall defile the covering of your graven images of silver and the ornament of the molten images of gold. Thou shalt cast them away as a menstruous cloth. Thou shalt say unto it, get thee hence. Wow, right?
Yeah.
And so in 21, we go to where it says, amen, again, when you turn to the right hand, okay? And so, again, H541, denominative form, to take the right hand road, to turn to the right. Where does Mashiach sit? At the right hand of the Father. What did he place in Moshe's hand? The staff, like we're talking about.
Right.
It's not by Moshe's authority. It's not by all of these things. It's always by Yahuwah's authority. Right?
Right.
So we see that when we dig deeper, and it just comes alive. You see what's really being said here in the full context of what it means to say, oh man. Oh man. Like, not only hallelujah, praise Yahuwah, but like turn to the right, turn, because this is the way, and you got to come out of her, my people, just like we just read, You have to get rid of your graven images of silver and gold and all these things. You have to get out. You have to turn from it, right? So, I thought that was neat.
Yeah, your ears will hear something from behind you saying, this is the way you should follow.
Right. Right, which is looking back to the Torah, looking back to the beginning. Look at what the covenant was. Who is the firstborn son? Israel. Israel failed, okay? I mean, flat out, let's just accept it. You know what I mean? That's
right.
Why Mashiach had to come in the first place. So, I mean, he already knew that from the beginning.
Yeah, it's very interesting when you go to the Midrash, just according to that, it says, thine ear shall hear a thing from behind me, them saying, when is this true? When one perceives a male voice in town and a female voice in the country, and also when it says yeah, yeah, or nay, nay. Another thing said is that whoever reads without sweetness and chants while reading Torah lessons of him, say the verse Ezekiel 20:25, and I also had given unto them the laws that are not good and ordinances whereby they could not live. Shall I say, because one cannot sweeten his voice, ordinances whereby they could not live should be applied to him? If two scholars are in one town and derive no pleasure in discussing Torah to the passage, and ordinances whereby they could not live is applied. and your father, and he will tell you, in the future Israel are destined to see and hear from the mouth of the Kodesh one. Blessed be he, and your ears will hear a word from behind you, in context, from the mouth of Yahuwah, saying, Isaiah, and your teacher will no longer be hidden behind his garment, and your eyes will see your teacher.
Right, yeah, and if we just go up a couple verses from 21 in Isaiah 30, it says, 1,000 shall flee at the rebuke of one, at the rebuke of few shall ye flee, till you're left as a beacon on top of a mountain and as an ensign on a hill. Okay, this is great. This is awesome, right? And therefore Yahuwah will wait that he may be gracious unto you, and therefore he will be exalted, that he may have mercy upon you. For Yahuwah is an Elohim of judgment. Blessed are they that wait for him. For the people shall dwell in Zion at Jerusalem, and shall weep no more. He will be very gracious unto you, and the voice of your cry, when he shall hear it, he will answer you. And though Yahuwah gives you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction, yet shall not your teachers be removed into a corner anymore, but your eyes shall see your teachers. And then again we see, and your ears shall hear the words behind you, saying, this is the way, walk ye in it. When you turn to the right hand, when you turn to the left, right? So this is saying that we're going to be in this situation that we're in right now. And we are going to be hearing the voice of Yahuwah in our ancestors, in our DNA. That is just who we are, right? I mean, we are a product of everybody that's come before us as well, and we are part of spiritual Israel. These are our fathers in Yahuwah, and the whole context of the whole thing is here we are. We are doing exactly what this says in Isaiah 30, right? We are hearing, we are seeing what the word actually says. It's coming to life. Yahuwah is showing who he is.
Yeah,
he's speaking to us through his word. If you can listen, you'll be able to see that he has us in the palm of his hand. You know that song, he's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world in his hand. Yeah, right. I mean, that's so true.
Yeah, it says, and thine ears.
Right.
Thou wilt see their teachers before them, and hear the words of the prophets and instructors, and that call after them from behind.
Right.
A lot of scholars explain the words, thine eyes shall see, and thine ears shall hear, to express figuratively the seeing and understanding of the heart, is substituted for as in frequently done. So when you turn to the right hand, etc., when you are about to depart from the right way, either to the right or to the left, you will hear distinctly the words of them that show you the right way, the true way, and your ears shall hear from behind you. Well, not as you do now, that you despise my words and say, you shall not prophesy for us true things, in verse 10. But it says, but your ears shall be bent also behind you to hear from me. Capital M, meaning to hear from Yahuwah. Perhaps a prophet will come and instruct the way to go, whether right to left.
Yeah. And we have to understand that, that's where a lot of people are at, and they're stuck because they're on kind of like a merry-go-round, right? You're just going round and round and
Woo,
round.
woo,
You know,
woo,
it's
woo,
just a
woo,
loop.
woo.
It's a continuous loop
Of
on
endless rabbit holes.
Right, exactly.
Of,
right. Anything it's just sugar coated, right? You know, I
And
mean, we're not
sugar-coated stuff, too.
we're not at a candy store trying to rot your teeth out, right? Like, this is not what this is. And so we got to recognize that, you know, as Christians come into, okay, this is what the Bible actually says, this is what his name actually is. I don't really identify with any of that anymore because I know the truth now. And so now what? And so we're here right along with you, learning all of these things. And it's very important to realize that, you know, when the Bible in the New Testament says that the law and the Torah has been fulfilled by Yahushua, it's because he exemplified it, right? He was the example, the perfect example of what we're supposed to do, right? How we're supposed to live, how, you know, and these are all instructions from the beginning that Yahuwah gives us as a loving father. And so when Paul's talking about these things, it's already stated off the jump, off the beginning. And if you can't just take one verse out of context, okay, because it's stated at the beginning that these people already know the law.
Right.
They already know it.
Yeah, so you can't pick and
they
choose.
know it word for word.
You can't.
So it's already on their heart because they've grown up in it. It's been taught in their homes. It's been taught at school. It's been taught in their jobs. It's been taught. I mean, you grow up in it. So these people are not just some average Joe that just was like, oh, wow, I picked up a Bible and I'm just going to read, you know,
Whatever
just to
I
the
want.
right of Matthew and just skip to the end and everything's just fine.
Right.
I can just
And
do whatever
Matthew
I
wasn't
want till
even
then.
written. And Matthew wasn't even written.
Right. I mean, that's just
So-
not how this works. I mean, once you understand what's really going on, you have to go back to the beginning because you have to learn what it's really about. And so you can't just skip to the end and just be like, oh yeah, well, we're just going to be saved at the end and everybody's just going to get incorruptible bodies and everything's going to be all good and we can just do whatever until then because, you know, on Sunday we go to church and we do all of these things, right? You know, like, really, I mean, you got to think about these things and what the Bible's actually saying here and what's the context really about, you know. And we have to recognize that the whole Bible is written by people that know the Torah. every single one.
Right.
Every single word is written by somebody who knows the Torah, who is learning and walking in the way, even if they're just starting and is a student like Timothy. You know what I mean? He is immersed in it. He's wanting to learn. He is like, I mean, you have to recognize the difference.
Right.
You can't just accept some Jolly Rancher and suck on it the rest of your life.
Well,
you
it's
know?
not a build. It's not like Build-A-Bear. It's not a Build-A-Bear, like not Build-A-Bear workshop. It's not a Build-A-Religion workshop. You can't just pick. Oh, I like this verse. I like that verse. Oh, that's the type of heart I want.
And he can manipulate scripture. It's not witchcraft. It's not like, you know, like you said, Build-A-Bear. Like,
Right.
you can't just be like, oh, I'm just going to Frankenstein something together and it's just going to be great. Because you can manipulate scripture to say anything that you want. But is that what Yahuwah is saying? Because you are not to be a false prophet. So you should really honestly care about what Yahuwah is saying, not anybody that you're listening to.
Right.
I mean, not even us. Okay? Go figure it out yourself. I mean, we have searched and are bringing you information out of love and prayer and out of our study. So we're not intentionally bringing you anything wrong or misled or anything. You know what I mean? But the whole point is to build this relationship. Let the bud sprout.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying? Let the seed sprout. And just figure it out. Like, go search for yourself. It's a journey, man. And it is so awesome because there's so much to learn. You can't put Yahuwah in a box. It's so much like beauty and understanding that when you're able to slow down and enjoy the simple things in life, that is priceless.
Yeah, but now that we've diverted a little bit back to how we're going to say, express how, like at this point of the story, we might think that the staff of wood that Yahuwah miraculously transformed into this serpent was just that of wood. However, careful analysis of this event reveals that this serpent is so terrifying that Moses, in the very presence of Yahuwah, flees from the serpent in terror. Now, snakes aren't so scary to Egyptians. I think that needs to be noted. So, why is he running with such great fear? Well, Moses had a staff which transformed into a serpent, and we're assuming that the serpent is extremely venomous and capable of killing Moses. Let's also assume that Moses is 80 years old and is reasonably intelligent and well trained in the ways of the world. If this is true, then Moses would know that the best defense of this type of serpent is actually, if you do your research on snakes, the best defense for this type of serpent is actually to freeze in place and not move. So Moses actually runs away as fast as an 80-year-old legs would allow. So we're going to assume that the serpent is a constrictor type serpent and is not venomous. What would be the proper response to this type of serpent? The proper response is to back away slowly. But Moses quickly flees. This is not an ordinary serpent. To understand this serpent, we need to understand this staff, which has been transformed into this extremely fearsome serpent. Since the written Torah gives us no background as to say which or what, as far as the history of the staff alone, if you check out the Talmud, it says it was created at twilight before the Shabbat. It was given to Adam in the Garden of Eden. Adam gave it to Enoch, who gave it to Methuselah, who in turn passed it to Noah. Noah bequeathed it to his son Shem, who transmitted it to Abraham. From Abraham to Isaac, then Yaakov, who took it to Egypt. Yaakov gave it to Yahusef, and upon Yahusef's death, all his possessions were moved to Pharaoh's place. Jethro, one of Pharaoh's advisors, desired it, whereupon he took it and stuck it in the ground in his garden. From then, no one could pull it out of the staff, out the staff until Moses came. He read the Hebrew letters on the staff and pulled it out readily. Knowing that Moses was the Redeemer of Israel, Jethro gave him his daughter, Zipporah, in marriage. Then, as a shepherd to Jethro, it was while investigating the phenomenon of the burning bush that Yahuwah said to Moses in Exodus 4:2, "What is in your hand?" And he said, "A staff. The staff which Moses pulled from the ground in Jethro's garden has been fashioned by Yahuwah himself, who has then given it to Adam. It was passed down after Moses' death to King David and to succeeding kings of Judah." This is not just some ordinary piece of wooden staff. And then another book talks about it. The Zohar talks about it when it talks about Genesis section 1. Page 9a, it says, "In the Egyptian hand was a spear like a weaver's beam." This is in reference to 1 Chronicles. This alludes to the divine rod which was in Moses' hand, and on which there was engraved the divine name, radiating in various combinations of letters. These same letters were in possession of Bezalel, who was called Weaver, and his school, as it is written, Them hath he filled with wisdom of heart of the craftsman and the skilled workman and the weaver. Exodus. So that the rod had engraved on it the unutterable name on every side in 42 various combinations which were illuminated in different colors. Thus we learned that the staff was engraved with 42 letter combinations, each in a different color, and then the Midrash tells us the amazing story in a way which gives us the insight to the most powerful staff when it talks about Moses marrying Zipporah. It says, on the seventh maidens whom Moses saw at the well attracted his notice, in particular on account of her modest demeanor, and he made her a proposal of marriage. But Zipporah repulsed him, saying, My father has a tree in his garden, with which he tests every man that expresses a desire to marry one of his daughters, and as soon as the suitor touches the tree, he is devoured by it. Moses states, Whence has he the tree? Zipporah says, It is the rod that the Kodesh one, blessed be him, created in the twilight of the first Shabbat Eve, and gave to Adam. He transmitted it to Enoch, from him descended to Noah, then to Shem, then to Abraham, then to Isaac, and then finally Yaakov, who brought it with him to Egypt and gave it to his son Yahusef. When Yahusef died, the Egyptians pillaged his house, and the rod which was in their booty they brought to Pharaoh's palace. At that time my father was one of the most prominent of the king's sacred scribes, and as such he had the opportunity of seeing the rod firsthand.
Wow.
He felt a great desire to possess it, and he stole it and took it to his house. On this rod the unutterable name is graven, and also the 10 plagues that Yahuwah will cause to visit the Egyptians in a future day. For many years it lay in my father's house. One day he was walking in his garden, carrying it, and he struck it in the ground. When he attempted to draw it out again, he found out that it had sprouted, and was putting forth blossoms. That is the rod with which he tries any that desires to marry his daughter. He insists that our suitors shall attempt to pull it out of the ground, but as soon as they touch it, it devours them. Having given him this account of her father's rod, Zipporah went home, accompanied by her sisters, and Moses followed them. Jethro was not a little amazed to see his daughters return so soon from the watering troughs. As a rule, they had to the chicanery they had to suffer from the shepherds detained them until late. No sooner had he heard their report about the wonder-working Egyptian than he explained, Mayhap he is one of the descendants of Abraham, from who issueth blessings for the whole earth. He rebuked his daughters for not having invited the strangers that had done them so valuable a service to come into their house, and he ordered them to fetch him in the hope that he would take one of his daughters to wife. Moses had been standing without all this time, and had allowed Jethro's daughters to describe him as an Egyptian, without protesting and asserting his Hebrew birth. For this, Yahuwah punished him by causing him to die outside of the promised land. Yahusef, who had proclaimed in public that he was Hebrew, found his last resting place in the land of the Hebrews, and Moses, who apparently had no objection to be considered an Egyptian, had to live and die outside of that land. Zipporah hastened forth to execute her father's wish, and no sooner had she ushered him in. Then Moses requested her hand in marriage. Jethro replied, If thou canst bring me the rod in my garden, I will give her to thee. Moses went out, found the sapphire rod that Yahuwah had bestowed upon Adam when he was driven forth from paradise, the rod that had reached Jethro after manifold, and which he had planted in the garden. Moses uprooted it and carried it to Jethro. The Midrash also speaks of this staff, and about when it's talking about Exodus chapter 8, verse 3, Go and exact a penalty of him. He said to him, How shall I bring upon him the 10 plagues? The reply was, And thou shalt take it in thy hand this rod. The rod weighed 40 seah, and was of sapphire, and the 10 plagues were engraved thereon in abbreviated form. D. Zach Adash Ben Ha Yahuwah said, In this order shalt thou bring upon him the plagues, and Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet. Just as the preacher sits and preaches while the interpreter sits before him, so shalt thou speak all that I shall command thee to Aaron, and Aaron thy brothers will speak unto Pharaoh by means of both of them were all these things performed, as it is said, and Moses and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh. So now we discover that this staff is not only made out of wood, but also sapphire. Because in Exodus chapter 2 also speaks of this rod. It says, And Pharaoh heard this thing and sought to kill Moses, and Moses escaped before Pharaoh to dwell in the land of Midian. And he sat by a well, and the priests of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew and filled the water troughs to give drink to the flocks of their father. But the shepherds came and drove them away, and Moses arose in power of his might and rescued them, and gave the flocks drink. And they came to Reuel, their grandfather, who said to them, How is it that you are coming so early today? And they replied, A Mazarite man not only delivered us from the hand of the shepherds, but also himself drew and watered the flock. And he said to his son's daughter, And where is he? Where did you leave the man? Call him, and let him eat bread. But when Reuel knew that Moses had fled from before Pharaoh, he cast him into the pit. But Zipporah, the daughter of his son, maintained him with food secretly for the time of 10 years, and at the end of the 10 years brought him out of the pit. And Moses went into the bedchamber of Reuel, and gave thanks and prayed before Yahuwah, who by him would work miracles and mighty acts. And there was shown to him the rod which was created between the evenings, and which was engraved and set forth the great and glorious name, with which he was to do the wonders in Mitzrayim, and to divide the sea of the soup, and to bring forth water from the rock. And it was fixed in the midst of the chamber, and he stretched forth his hand at once and took it. Then behold, Moses was willing to dwell with the man, and he gave Zipporah, the daughter of his son, to Moses. So now that we understand that this is a very unique staff, let's see if we can shed some light here on this Exodus passage by the Midrash. When they, with their commentary, it says, Go and exact a penalty of him. He said to him, How shall I bring upon him the 10 plagues? And thou shalt take it in thy hand, this rod. We know how much it weighed, and we know this. But Exodus 4:20 tells us that Moses took his wife and his sons and made them ride on the ass and returned to the land of Mitzrayim. And Moses took the rod which he had brought away from the chamber of his father-in-law, and it was from the sapphire throne of glory. It weighed 40 sin, and upon it was graved and set forth the great and glorious name by which the sign should be wrought before Yahuwah by his hand. From the Midrash, we learned that this sapphire staff, how much it weighed, and the weight is about the amount of water used in the baptismal to immerse an object or a person. But to put it mildly, this sapphire staff weighed about 672 pounds. So tell me how an ordinary man could even pick this up. No ordinary man could pick it up, much less pull it out of the ground or wave it around. But let's look at exactly what the World Book Encyclopedia can tell us about sapphire. Well, sapphire is a hard and clear gem. It is a variety of minerals. The best known sapphires are blue. Their color results from a small amounts of iron and titanium in the stone. Sapphires are found in many other colors, including yellow, green, white, black, violet, and orange. Bless you. No blue sapphires are called fancy sapphires. The red variety is also known as ruby. The most valuable sapphires once came from Kashmir in India. They are magnificent cornflower blue, the color to which all sapphires are compared. Today, Thailand is the most important source of all blue sapphires. Blue and fancy sapphires are also found in Burma, Australia, and the state of Montana in the United States. Star sapphires can contain needles of the mineral rutile and reflect light in 6 star-like rays. The most highly prized star sapphires are blue. Black or white star sapphires are less valuable. Among minerals, sapphires and rubies rank second only to diamonds in hardness. For this reason, sapphires are sometimes used as an abrasive or polishing agent. Large numbers of inexpensive imitation sapphires are manufactured every year, but the natural stones have maintained their high value because of a demand for the real gems. See, when you hear about the throne of glory, you remember that it says it was also seen as made of sapphire. This stone is related to wisdom, and the Hebrew word sapphire is related to sephar, or a book. It is also related to vision. Some say that this sapphire is like a third eye, through which mystical vision is attained, and indeed, the third eye is associated with a sapphire blue color. What do you think about that?
Wow. Interesting.
So the Hebrew word
and then that's the whole Titanic thing. The blue stuff. Oh my goodness.
See how it all kind of connects with that sapphire and how important that is? Maybe she threw maybe that's the symbolism of the Yahudim throwing the rod of Yahuwah, and I don't know, away. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it all goes along with the line of, the backsliding and the, just putting Yahuwah on a back burner, not wanting to listen, not wanting to have an open relationship and communicate with him and do what he says, because he asks you to do these things because he wants to keep you safe. And that's really the bottom line. And once you start walking in the way, you realize how true that is,
Right. So when you move on, you see that when the first plague began, the lower reality is slowly refined to becoming a proper vessel able to receive the revelation of the essence of the higher reality. This is accomplished by fulfilling the commandment of counting the Omar, or the word for counting is from the same root as sapphire, the brilliant stone known as even sapphire, denoting the light from within lowly material. So now that we know that sapphire is extremely hard, and we know that engraved, not just written on this extremely hard sapphire staff are the abbreviations for the 10 plagues. At this point, we need to understand a bit about the plagues in Egypt in order to gain some insight into the staff. What are the staff and the plagues have to do? Well, okay, created a little spreadsheet here that we could
put on our website.
Put somewhere, right? The purpose of the first group, Yahuwah's existence, they were initiated by Aaron with the staff of Moses, and they involved water and land. But when you look at the second group, you see divine providence, which is initiated by Yahuwah without the staff of Moses, and they involve those dwelling on the land. And then you have a third group, which is a universal Yahuwah. These were initiated by Moses with his staff, and they revealed Yahuwah's power to strike from the air. So, 3 groups here. And it's very important to understand this, because in the first group you have blood, Exodus 7:1. And remember, let me explain what the first group is again. The purpose is to show us Yahuwah's existence. These things were initiated by Aaron with the staff of Moses, and they involved water and land. So, Exodus 7:1, the blood. This is preceded by what? A warning. In the morning, Exodus 7:15. And then it goes on, you shall know that I am Yahuwah, Exodus 7:17. And then Pharaoh, what? Hardened his heart in Exodus 7:22. And then what? Reduced the Egyptians in their own land to insecure existence of what? Strangers or sojourners. So what is it? Well, they got the frogs, which came by a warning. Remember, they got the blood, and then they got the frogs, preceded by a warning. Go into Pharaoh, Exodus 7:26, and then Pharaoh hardened his heart, Exodus 8:11. And then what? Rob the Egyptians of their pride, their possessions, and their sense of superiority, reducing them to what? lowly submission. Third plague, lice. Exodus 8:16. No warning at this point. And we're still in this first category of Yahuwah. No warning, Exodus 8:16. Pharaoh hardened his heart, Exodus 8:15. It imposed what? Upon the Egyptians, actual physical suffering. And then that leads you into the second group, because that portion right there just proves you Yahuwah's existence. There is a greater one. There is a Elohim above all Elohims. There is a God above all over the gods. And these first things are proving it.
Right.
So this is what, but then you lead into this second group that prove his divine providence. Like I said, these were initiated by Yahuwah without the staff of Moses, and they involved what? Those dwelling on the land. So, fourth, beasts, Exodus 8:20, preceded by a warning. In the morning, Exodus 8:16, you will know that what? I am Yahuwah in this land. In this land, Exodus 8:22. And guess what? Again, we see the repeat of Pharaoh hardening his heart, Exodus 8:28. Reduce the Egyptians in their own land to insecure existence of strangers. Same thing. Number 5, plague, Exodus 9, 1-7. Preceded by a warning. And then it says, go into Pharaoh, Exodus 9:1. But then again, Pharaoh continues to harden his heart, Exodus 9:7. So, once again, this starting to rob the Egyptians of their pride, their possessions, and their sense of superiority.
Right.
Well, then you get to the boils, Exodus 9:8. No more warnings, Exodus 9:8. Yahuwah hardened the heart of Pharaoh, Exodus 9:12. He imposed upon the Egyptians actual physical suffering. Do you see the pattern that I'm showing you here? Okay, now we're getting to the third part, where Yahuwah shows that he is universal over all things. These were initiated by Moses with his staff, and they revealed Yahuwah's power to strike from the air. 7. Hail, fire, Exodus 9:13. And then proceeded with what? A warning. In the morning, Exodus 9:13. So you may know that there is no one like me in all the earth.
Right. Yeah.
So Yahuwah hardened the heart of Pharaoh, as we've seen again, Exodus 9:27, verse 34, verse 35, and then eventually Exodus 10, verse 1. So he's reducing these Egyptians in their own land to the insecure existence of strangers. Then he brings upon them locusts, Exodus 10:1, verse 1-20, preceded by a warning. Go into Pharaoh, Exodus 10:1. But then we see Yahuwah hardened the heart of Pharaoh, Exodus 10:20, which once again robbed the Egyptians of their superiority. So then, darkness, plague of darkness, Exodus 10:21, with no more warnings, Exodus 10:21. Yahuwah hardened the heart of Pharaoh once again by Exodus 10:27, and imposed them that actual physical suffering. But then when you get to number 10, death, this was brought on by Yahuwah, Exodus 12:29. And what? Yahuwah hardened the heart of Pharaoh, Exodus 14:4. We see this pattern. We can see the 6 of the 10 plagues were performed with the staff. Furthermore, we can see that every plague initiated by men was initiated with this sapphire staff. The only plagues not initiated with the staff were initiated by Yahuwah himself. Nevertheless, since the staff was fashioned by Yahuwah, we can understand why it is not necessary for those plagues which demonstrated divine providence. The Midrash also speaks of this division of the plagues. And Moses stretched forth his rod towards heaven. 3 of the plagues came through the agency of Aaron. 3 through Moses. 3 through Yahuwah. And 1 through the united efforts of all 3. Do you not see what this is trying to show? Blood, frogs, and gnats being on the earth were through Aaron. Hail, locusts, and darkness through Moses, because they were in the air, and Moses had power over earth and heaven. The swarms, the murrain, and the plague of the firstborn through Yahuwah, and the boils through all of them. The Midrash also gives us some interesting insight on the engraving of the staff, and why it was. And Yahuwah said unto them, Moses, when thou goest back into Egypt, see that thou do before Pharaoh all the wonders. What wonders is he talking about? Should you say to the serpent, to the leprosy, or the blood, well, did not Yahuwah tell him to perform these wonders only before Israel? Moreover, we do not find that Moses performed these wonders before Pharaoh. The meaning of all these wonders, which I have put in thy hand, is obvious then, is the rod on which were inscribed the 10 plagues, for it had inscribed upon it the abbreviations. Yahuwah said unto them, these are the plagues which I have put in thy hand. Do them before Pharaoh with this rod. The plagues were performed in the following order on these estimated dates. On the first day of Nisan, Egypt was afflicted with the first plague, blood. Exodus 7:19. Iyar, no plague. Sivan, no plague. The month of Tammuz, no plague. And then guess what? The first day of Av, Egypt was afflicted with the second plague, frogs. Exodus 8:2. And then Elul, first of Elul, Egypt was afflicted with the third plague. Tishri, the first day of Tishri, Egypt was afflicted with the fourth plague, the beasts. First day of Shivan, Egypt was afflicted by the fifth plague, cattle, plague. Exodus 9:3. On the first day of Kislev, Egypt was afflicted with the sixth plague, boils. On the first day of Tevet, Egypt was afflicted with the seventh plague, hail and fire. Exodus 9:24. The first day of Shavat, Egypt was afflicted with the eighth plague, locusts. Exodus 10:4. First day of Adar, Egypt was afflicted with the ninth plague, darkness. The 15th day of Nisan. Remember, we're approaching what? Egypt was afflicted with the 10th plague, death of the firstborn.
Wow.
Exodus 33 verse 3. Later in Shemot, Exodus 4, we see this sapphire staff appear once again. Exodus 4:17. And you shall take in your hand this staff with which you will work wonders. And he took the staff of Yahuwah in his hand. In this, we see that Yahuwah intends to use the staff for wonders. From our look at the plagues, we can see that the staff was indeed used to perform some of the most miraculous wonders the world has ever seen in history. We see the first wonder performed with this staff in Exodus 4:1. And Moses answered and said, But behold, they will not believe, nor hearken unto my voice, for they will say, Yahuwah hath not appeared unto thee. And Yahuwah said unto him, What is that in thy hand? And he said, A rod. And he said, Cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from before it. And Yahuwah said unto Moses, Put forth thine hand, and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand, and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand, that they may believe that Yahuwah, Elohim of their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, the Elohim of Jacob, has appeared unto thee. This sapphire self was turned into a serpent, and not just any serpent, as we have already seen. This was a serpent that tempted Eve.
Wow.
This was the same staff-sized serpent that set off the 10 plagues in the beginning, that divided the divided the Red Sea, and that brought forth water from the rocks, that made of sapphire with Yahuwah's unutterable name written upon it. This staff is no ordinary staff. Its origin was part of the creation process. It was the agent of creation in that it controls creation. This staff was able to put the world on its track of goodness. This staff is capable of transforming evil into its good form, and of transforming good into its evil form. This is a demonstration, illustration, when Moses cast the staff down and it converted into the true form, the primal snake, which he grasped. The primal snake's tail, it converted back into the staff. In his hand, it is a staff. On the ground, out of his hand, it is the primal snake. It is the snake that deceived the mankind. It is the snake that caused the fall. Since the sapphire staff was part of creation, it comes as no wonder that when it was transformed on the ground and not in his hand, it became the serpent of creation story. The Midrash tells us why this particular serpent was used in this demonstration, in this illustration of Exodus chapter 3, verse 12. And Moses answered and said, But behold, they will not believe me. Moses then spoke not befittingly, for Yahuwah had said unto him, And they shall hearken to thy voice. And he said, But behold, they will not believe me. Whereupon Yahuwah answered him, and on his own lines, on his own accord, and his own knowledge, and gave him signs according to his words. He prophesied signs according to his words. He said, see what it says after this. Look, and Yahuwah said unto him, What is that in thy hand? And he said, A rod. That is to say, thou art worthy of being smitten with that rod which is in thy hand, for thou didst speak slanderous of my children who are believers, and the sons of believers, they are believers, as it says, and the people believed. That's in Exodus. And the sons of believers, as it says, and he believed in Yahuwah. Genesis. Moses has followed the example of the serpent who has spoken slanderous of his creator, as it is said, for Yahuwah doeth know. Just so as the serpent was punished, so will he be punished. See what is written. And he said, Cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent, because he had copied the example of the serpent. Yahuwah showed him the serpent, as if to say, Thou didn't do the thing that the serpent did. And Moses fled before it.
Wow.
A Roman lady once boasted, My Yahuwah is greater than yours. In which way? The man replied. She replied, For when your Yahuwah revealed himself unto Moses at the thorn bush, he merely hid his face. But when he beheld the serpent, Who is my Yahuwah? Immediately he fled from before it. To which he replied, Woe to her! When our Yahuwah revealed himself at the thorn bush, there was no room for him to flee anywhere. Where could he flee? To the heavens? Or to the sea? Or dry land? See what it says in reference to our Yahuwah. Do not I fill the heaven and earth? Said Yahuwah. This is Jeremiah. Whereas Yahuwah, the serpent, a man can escape from merely by running away a few paces. For this reason does it say, And Moses fled from before it. Another reason of his flight is because he had sinned by his words. Had he not sinned, he would not have fled. For not the serpent brings death, but sin. As it is written. And then Yahuwah said unto Moses, Put forth thy hand and take it by the tail. We have already explained what the serpent implied for Moses. But what did this sign signify for Israel? The rod was converted into a serpent as a symbol of Pharaoh, who was called what? A serpent, people. As it says, Behold, I am against thee, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the great dragon. This is Ezekiel. He is also referred to as a Leviathan, the slain serpent in Isaiah, because he hit Israel. Yahuwah said to him, or Yahuwah said to Moses, Doest thou see Pharaoh who is like a serpent? Well, thou wilt smite him with the rod, and in the end he will become like wood. And just as the rod cannot bite, so he will no longer bite. Hence, put forth thy hand and take it by the tail, that they may believe that Yahuwah, the Elohim of their fathers, hath appeared unto thee. Go and perform before them this miracle, that they should believe that I have appeared unto thee. So, measure for measure, Yahuwah punished Moses' slander with the one who first slandered. From the above midrash, we can see that Yahuwah accomplished multiple tasks with this serpent sign, not just one. Exodus 4:17, And you shall take it in your hand, the staff, with which you will work wonders. And he took the staff of Elohim in his hand. This indicates that the staff of Moses was, well, in reality, the staff of Yahuwah. Yahuwah again reminds us of creation, where Yahuwah used this name for creating. The Midrash gives us some insight into Yahuwah's staff, as it pertains to Exodus chapter 8, verse 1. One must not make use of the scepter of a mortal king, but Yahuwah handed his scepter to Moses, as it says, and Moses took the rod of Yahuwah in his hand.
Right.
So if it's not obvious by now, as we have noticed several times, the action of the staff when it is in the hand of Moses or Aaron is far different than the action of the staff when it is on the ground. So note that when Moses went into Egypt, he took the staff, as we read in Exodus 4:20. So Moses took his wife and his sons, mounted them on the ass, and went unto the land of Egypt. And Moses took in his hand the rod which he had taken from the garden of his father-in-law, which was Jethro. It was the sapphire from the throne of glory. It was weighed for 40 sins, and the great and glorious name was clearly engraved on it. With it, miracles were performed from before Yahuwah. While it is Moses or Aaron's hand, it performs the most amazing wonders, the wonders of creation. It separates the wonders and it creates dry land. Do you not see the connection between creation and the rod? Genesis 1:7, and Yahuwah made the firmament and divided the waters, and were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. Okay, put that alongside with Exodus 4:21, if you will. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yahuwah caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. You know, it creates animals and swarming creatures on the earth as well. Genesis 1:24. And Yahuwah said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing and beasts of the earth after his kind, and it was so. Why don't you put that side by side with Exodus 8:20 that says, Yahuwah said unto Moses, rise up early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh. Lo, he come forth to water, and say unto him, thus says Yahuwah, let my people go, that they may serve me. Else if thou wilt not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies upon thee, and upon thy servants, and upon thy people, into the houses and the houses of Egypt shall be full of swarm of flies, and also the ground whereon they are. Is this not creating? Is not bringing flies just creating flies? Right. What about Exodus 8:2? If thou refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite all the borders with frogs, and the river shall bring forth frogs abundantly, which shall go up and come into thine house, and into thy bedchamber, and unto thy bed, and into the house of thy servants, and unto thy people, and into thine ovens, and into thy kneading troughs. And the frogs shall come upon both on tree, and upon the people, and upon thy servants. And Yahweh spoke unto Moses, saying unto Aaron, stretch forth thy hand with thy rod over the streams, over the rivers, and over the ponds, and cause frogs to come up to the land of Egypt. And Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt. What about Exodus 8:16? Yahweh said, Moses, say unto Aaron, stretch out thy rod, and smite the dust of the land, that it might be lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And they did so. For Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod, and smote the dust of the earth, and became lice in man and beast. All the dust of land became lice throughout all the land of Egypt. What about Exodus 17:4? Moses cried unto Yahuwah, saying, what shall I do unto this people? They be almost ready to stone me. And Yahuwah said to Moses, go on before the people, and take with thee of the elders of Israel, and thy rod, where thou smotest the river, take in thy hand, and go. Behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock in Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. So in the hand of Moses and Aaron, two great men, two righteous men, this sapphire stud had the power of creation. It was called Yahuwah's staff, because Yahuwah's name is in the staff. He is the Elohim. His Elohim's name is the name of Yahuwah, uses the executing strict justice. The world was created with strict justice. This link to creation is also shown when Moses let go of the rod and cast it into the earth. At this point, the staff transforms itself into the serpent who tempted Eve. Out of Moses' hand, the staff becomes an unspeakable evil. When Moses confronts his fear and takes the serpent in his hand, taking control, so to speak, the serpent becomes again an instrument of creation. Let's read Exodus 4, verse 2. And Yahuwah said unto him, what is in thy hand? And he said, a rod. And he said, cast it to the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from it. And Yahuwah said unto Moses, put forth thine hand, and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand, and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand, that they may believe that Yahuwah, Elohim of their fathers, the Yahuwah of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, the Elohim of Jacob, hath appeared unto thee. When we take a hold of creation to perform the will of Yahuwah, we create a Yahuwah reality. When we relinquish control to the base things of this world and its oppression and its communism, we unleash unspeakable evil on the earth. It is my fervent prayer that we grasp and use creation correctly for the glory of Yahuwah. There's other books that speak of this staff as a spear, a divine rod, in the Zohar, Moses' rod, and the rod of Yahuwah. It says, and he smote the Egyptians, a man of great appearance. This means that in this verse, that every time Israel sins, Yahuwah leaves them and withholds from them all the blessings and all the lights which illuminated them. He smote an Egyptian. This signifies the light of Israel's great luminary, to wit, Moses, who is called an Egyptian, as it is written, and they said, an Egyptian delivered us.
Wow.
The Zohar also speaks of this staff as the staff of Yahuwah. It also calls the staff of Yahuwah Metatron. And it also in the Talmud calls it that. It says, similarly of Moses is written, and the staff of Yahuwah was in his hand, the rod is Metatron. From one side of whom comes life, and from the other death. When the rod remains a rod, it is a help from the side of good, and when it is turned into a serpent, it is hostile, so that Moses fled from it, and Yahweh delivered it into his hand. This rod typifies the Talmud, which prescribes what is permitted and what is forbidden, what is permitted and what is forbidden. When Moses struck the rock, Yahweh took it back from him, and he went down to him with the rod. This is confirmed in 2 Samuel, to smite him with it. The rod being the evil inclination, which is a serpent, the cause of our captivity, the cause of the fall of mankind, the cause of it all. But lift up thy rod and stretch out thy hand over the sea and divide it, it said. This signifies what? Lift up thy rod, on which is engraved the Kodesh name. Stretch out thy hand with the side bearing his Kodesh name, so that the waters, beholding it, may flee before the power that is in its letters. The other side of the rod will be used for the other ends. How is it that this rod is described sometimes as the rod of Yahuwah and sometimes the rod of Moses then? Well, in the book of Ar Hamana, in the ancient times, it is rightly remarked that the two names are equivalent. The purpose of the rod in either case being to stir up the powers of the might or judgment. Thine hand indicates the left hand, which is the connected the judgment with thy left hand. Unto those who are deaf to the lessons of the Torah, which it proclaims to them every single day, water originates from the side of the left hand and issues thence. Therefore, that Yahuwah desires to dry up the water, why did he bid Moses use his left hand? The answer is that Moses was bidden to lift up his staff to dry the waters and to stretch forth his hand to bring them back on the Egyptians through the agency of the left hand, the two operations being distinct. What is called here sea is later called depths in Exodus. This shows that Yahuwah performed one miracle within another, causing the deeps to congeal in the heart of the sea, so that the children of Israel went on dry land in the midst of the sea.
Wow.
So, this is a lot of information. But this sounds like that old ancient myth about the sword and the stone to me.
Mm-hmm.
Which is obviously, the sword and the stone is obviously just a ripoff of Yahuwah's holy word and his history of his people.
Right.
Because I'm sure by now, if you haven't seen the connection between Moses' staff and Excalibur, the sword of King Arthur. In this myth, Arthur becomes king after he removes a sword named Excalibur from a stone which miraculously held it. Because he was able to do this, Arthur was made king, and as king, Arthur redeemed the people of England from all their enemies. What are the parallels? Well, Moses' staff and Excalibur's staff are extremely crazy in the comparison. Moses removes the staff from Jethro's garden, or bedroom, where it had been miraculously held. After doing this feat, Moses is recognized as the redeemer of Yahuwah's people. Moses eventually becomes like a king over the Yahudim. Instead of using a sword to vanquish his enemies, Moses uses the staff of Yahuwah. Instead of a round table with 13 knights, Moses has a round camp with 13 tribes.
Right.
So the truth of the parable of Moses, though, is far more profound and powerful than the myth of King Arthur. And there are some hint that most of the myths of the world are merely knockoffs of the truths found in the Midrash. But it appears that the origin of this staff of Moses' rod, this rod in the hand of Moses, was an instrument of creation. When thrown to the ground out of Moses' hand, it became a serpent of indescribable evil. It became the serpent which tempted Eve in the Garden of Eden. These same thoughts are a part of the myth of the magic wand, that which is taken in the hand to do good or evil. The difference between the magic wand and the staff of Moses are manifest. Moses' staff was too heavy to pick up without a miraculous intervention. Moses' staff was real. Moses' staff was made of sapphire. Moses' staff was Yahuwah's staff. Moses' staff was engraved with the name of Yahuwah, the tetragram. Moses' staff was used by the righteous to perform the will of Yahuwah. The miracles, you may ask? Well, Exodus 7:23, before I shall strike the waters that are in the river with the staff that is in my hand, and they shall change to blood. See, every Passover, Pesach, we talk about the Moses' staff and the signs, and also we refer to the plagues as moftim, or wonders. What do these terms mean, though? Well, the miracles of Yahuwah as performed from Israel fall into two categories. The first is called the signs, or the ot, which describes miracles intended to foretell or even bring about a future event. For example, 2 Kings 13, verse 15, it says, the prophet Elijah tells King Joash to shoot arrows towards the kingdom of Aram as a sign that Joash would defeat Aram. When Joash obeys only partially, the prophet tells him that he will weaken but not destroy Aram. Moses' staff was a sign, or a banner, because the names of all the plagues were carved into it, thus foretelling what would occur. Also, the staff was a sign of Yahuwah's desire to fulfill the will of the righteousness, because the staff represented a king's scepter, and it being in Moses' hand, foretold that Yahuwah would turn over a certain amount of control over to the world, to Moses and Israel, i.e. that the world's future would depend on the quality of Israel's deeds. But the Moftim, on the other hand, are the miracles that Yahuwah performs directly without a sign preceding them, and without any participation by the righteous here on earth. These are not meant to prove anything, but to serve other purposes. The plagues in Egypt were both a sign and a moftim. They were signs because they were meant to prove a point, namely that Yahuwah gives control over the world to deserving righteous men, information that would encourage Israel to receive and observe the Torah. They also were moftim, or miracles, that were designed to punish the Egyptians. But what does this have to do with the Messiah? Well, in Genesis, it says, he said, what pledge shall I give thee? And she said, that signet, that cord, and thy staff that is in thy hand. A Ruach HaKodesh was enkindled within her. Thy signet alludes to royalty, as in the verse, though the son of Joachim, or king of Judah, were the signet upon my right hand, or thy cord, alludes to the Sanhedrin, as in the verse, and then that they put with the fringe of each corner a thread of blue. And the staff alludes to the royal Messiah, as in the verse, the staff of thy strength Yahuwah will send out of Zion, and he gave them to her, and she conceived by him men mightily like himself and righteous like himself. And Judah sent to the kid of the goats, laughing in his habitable earth, laughing always before him. The Torah laughs at me. The Kodesh one, blessed be he, said to Judah, thou didn't deceive thy father with a kid of goats by thy life. Tamar will deceive thee with a kid of goats. And the next passage we see that the staff is meant to bring life. It says, the righteous are destined to resurrect the dead. For it is said, there shall be yet old men and old women sit in the broad places of Jerusalem, every man with his staff in his hand for very age. And it is written, and lay my staff upon the face of the child. So there's also some interesting commentary on Exodus chapter 3 and 4, where it says, here is a staff which is an inherent object, and the hand, which is something very much alive. I will demonstrate that I can kill that which is alive and bring to life which is dead. I will make your hand useless, and your staff will suddenly come alive. When you check out the teachings of Rambam's work titled The Laws Concerning the Messiah, the Rambam also associates the staff with the Messiah. There is also a reference to the Messiah in the passage concerning Balaam, who prophesies about the two anointed kings, the first anointed King David, who saved Israel from her oppressors, and the final anointed king, who will arise from amongst his descendants and save Israel at the end of the days. The following quoted phrases are from that passage. I see it, but not now. This refers to David. I perceive it, but not in the near future. This refers to the King Messiah. A star shall go forth from Yaakov. This refers to David. And a staff shall arise in Israel. This refers to Yahushua, the Messiah. So we've put on a little chart to show you that the wonders that were performed in Egypt with the staff of Moses. And we went, and we'll go over that real quick. The purpose of this first group, just like the plagues, it's the same pattern. Again, the first group, to prove Yahuwah's existence. These were initiated by Aaron with the staff of Moses, and they involved water and land. The blood preceded the warning, you shall know. All of these things are the same. If you remember that chart that we went over. But it all ended with showing the above wonders, and are important because we will see them again in the days of the Messiah, as the prophet spoke. And Micaiah 7:15, as in the days of thy forthcoming out of the land of Egypt will I show unto him marvelous things. So, concluding these thoughts, he who causes his neighbor to fulfill a precept is regarded by Scripture as though he had done it himself. For it is written, Yahuwah said unto Moses, take thy rod wherewith thou smotest the river. Did Moses then smite it? Aaron smote it. But he who caused his neighbor to fulfill a precept is regarded by Scripture as though he had done it himself.
Right.
What does that mean? That means the Messiah is the rod. That's what that means.
That's
because he who causes his neighbor to fulfill a precept of Torah is regarded by Scripture as though he had done it too. That's why the rod is the Messiah. Because the Messiah was part of the creation account. Created all things. He says, in the beginning I was, I am. How is that not the rod of Yahuwah?
Right. Absolutely. That is so amazing. And, it's so funny how things work out and how we just learn so much because, we go on this journey together and, as I'm listening to you, I get led on a path that really, just reveals so much light to really just support and lift up Yahuwah and in what you're saying. So what I want to do as we close up here our teaching is just to end with giving praise and seeing how we see in Exodus the Aleph and the Tav, and not only that, but the Yod He and the Wad He. And we're going to go to Exodus chapter 14, verse 4, like you said, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he shall follow after them, and I will be honored upon Pharaoh and upon all his house, that the Egyptians may know that I am Yahuwah. And they did so, right? So, if we go to the Hebrew, in the start of the verse, and I will, okay? And I will. Well, we have H853, which happens to be the Aleph and the Tav. Okay, so, and I will, like, so who are we talking about? I, me, his authority, the beginning and the end. I am doing these things, right? So it says here that it is pronounced as Eth, or which is ETH or AYTH, Eth, right? Which also describes it as apparently contracted from H226 in a demonstrative sense of entity, right? Self, generally used as a point more definitively. It says this: as such, unrepresented in English. Now, how is that? You know what I mean? Like, if we weren't on this path and we didn't even know to even look for that, you wouldn't even know. So this is what I'm saying. Like, all the evil one wants to do, and there are many, is to cover this up so that you don't see this stuff.
Right. Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
They don't want you to recognize this and be like, oh, well, what? I know what that is. So let's dig a little deeper here. So, right, we go there, and then we also see, all right, that goes to H852, which is also the Aleph and the Tav, which is just with the little thing at the bottom, right? With the Chaldee corresponding to mean portent or a sign, right? And what does portent mean? It means a sign or warning that something, especially something monumentous or like monumental, is likely to happen, okay? Or an exceptional or wonderful person or thing, or like the creator of all things, right? So we see here that there is so much in that we see, right? And so further, as we go on, where he describes himself, again, we see at the end it says, I am Yahuwah, and they did so that the Egyptians may know that I am Yahuwah, and they did so, which is the Yod-Heh-Wod-Heh, right? And so it's labeled here as H3068, right? Okay, so that says, you know, the Jehovah, the Jewish national name of God or whatnot, self-existent or eternal, right? So it's self-existent or eternal is what we need to focus on, right? That's what it is. In the ancient language, there was no V, so it's not Jehovah. There wasn't even a J nor a V, right? So we know that it's Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh, and we say Yahuwah, right? We gotta apply the vowel points appropriately. But the main point is that he is self-existent and eternal, okay? So we see here, it says that H3068 comes from H1961. Well, what does that say? It says the Aleph and the Tav, right? With the little thing at the end. Ihi, right? It's apparently a variation of H346, also used in Hosea 13, verse 10 and 14. meaning I will be, right? So he's not only saying I am the beginning and the end, the Aleph and the Tav. He said I will be. So he's talking about how he's already knows that he's going to be having to come. You know,
absolutely.
I mean, it says so right here, and I mean, and it's amazing when you get down and you're able to see what is really going on here, right? It's just amazing. And then furthermore, you know, more variations of that is Haya, and Yesh or Yash, right? And so the description of this is perhaps to stand out, to exist, an entity, is or am or are or to be, as may suit the connection. There are, he, it, shall, there may be, shall, there should be, thou do, had, hast. You know, he is the beginning and the end, right? This is what it's describing. Which hath, I shout, that, have, he, it, there is, substance, it. There was, there were, ye will, thou wilt, wouldn't, ist. So that is just, I mean, just amazing, right? We see all of these things, and I just want to show you that when we look and we see the Aleph and the Tav, right? And we see that he says, I will. And everything that we've talked about and that we've explained what that means. We look and we see that. How many times is that in the Bible in just this description? So if you're looking for it, you can find it. And guess what, people? Guess what? If you're looking, it says right here, and you can take it from H853, 7,302 times. Plus H852, which there's 3. So, yeah. So, 7,305 times you have the Aleph and the Tav, and then you have so many other variations thereof, you see? And once you recognize the Hebrew letters, and that's why we call him by his name, and we're learning all of these things, is because these things make everything connect so beautifully, and it makes it come to life. You understand the story so much more, and how much, like, just all you have for just giving praise to Yahuwah. You know what I mean? Like, you fall to your knees flat on your face because you just realize how much you were just not worthy, and how much he just shows you so much mercy. You know, it's a beautiful thing. And so, yeah, I just feel like we need to recognize these things, because as it says, you know, this is an oath. This is a sign. This is because things are to come. Because he is the Aleph and the Tav. He is the great I am. Right. He was, he is, and he is to come. And that's the bottom line, because not we say so, but the scripture says so. Yahuwah says so.
Right. And they say they did so.
Right.
The Torah compliments them that the Israelites for obeying what seems like an irrational command, i.e. making camp facing their enemies and masters. They could have questioned such an order, but did not even do so. And see, just that verse alone, you can unpack a lot of stuff.
Right.
When it says, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he shall pursue after them. Mm-hmm. Because Pharaoh feared them at the plagues of the firstborn, and he asked them, and blessed me also. He was not disposed to pursue after the Israelites, even if they were to flee. And he would rather have Moses to do with them as he pleases. Therefore, it was necessary to state that Yahuwah hardened his heart to pursue after them. Further on, it says more, and I beheld, I will harden the hearts of Egyptians, and they shall go in after them. After the Egyptians saw that the sea had split before the children of Israel, and that they had walked in the midst of the sea upon dry land, which is the most outstanding wonder of all wonders, how could they be disposed to come in after them to harm them? This was indeed madness on their part, but it was he who turned their counsel into foolishness and strengthened their hearts to enter the sea. And I will be honored through Pharaoh, it says. When in a different translation it says, I will be honored through Pharaoh. How? Well, when the Kodesh one, blessed be he, takes vengeance on the wicked, his sacred name that we're just closing on, is magnified and honored. Thus too it states in Ezekiel 38:22, and I will plead against him with the pestilence and with blood, etc. And afterwards, thus I shall be magnified and sanctified. And it states in Psalms 76:3, there he broke the fiery shafts of the bow, and afterwards, after he had done this, in Judah is Yahuwah known. Further, it states in Psalms 9:17, Yahuwah is known because he executed judgment. So, yeah, through Pharaoh and through all his forces, he began the wrongdoings, and with him began the punishment. And they did so. But the Israelites, this is stated in order to tell us, that was my point. And they did so. This is stated in order to tell their praise. That they hearkened to Moses and did not say, how can we move nearer to our enemies? We ought rather to flee. But they said, it is ours only to carry out the bidding of the son of Aaron. And to relate their praises that they listened to Moses, it's also said in other resources that they did just that, was to give glory to the Father. That's what they did. Therefore, it was obvious here as well. So it is explained to relate their praises. Scripture testifies to their righteousness, but it seems to me that it says that the Egyptians overtook them as they were encamped by the sea. This proves they turned back, therefore they did just that. So another witness proves that they did exactly what Moses commanded them. They did just that. It basically relates to all of their praises to Yahuwah.
Right. Oh man!
I shall stiffen the heart of Pharaoh, seeing the Pharaoh lately had become so humiliated. Unless Yahuwah would give him back some self-confidence, he would not dare to pursue the Israelites, who himself had not only chased out, but had begged to offer prayers on his behalf. Without such divine intervention, even if Pharaoh should have reached the conclusion that the Israelites had fled, he would not, in his present state of mind, have the audacity to mount a pursuit after the Israelites. Thus being praised to Yahuwah. Father, we come to you in the name of Yahushua to give you praise. Thank you for always being a just Father, and always surpassing our understanding of who you are. And thank goodness we can't just put you in some sort of box and limit your unlimited abilities. So praise for the unlimited abilities of Yahuwah. We want to come into the knowledge of who you are more deeply and intimately as we approach Shavuot. We want to be remembered of the fire of the Ruach HaKodesh that is blessed upon the Kodesh ones of Yahuwah's people. In the name of Yahushua, we pray for all those whose needs need to be met according to his will. Amen. Amen.
Amen.